Welcome to the Ride of My Life podcast. I'm Rena, and I'll be sharing with you what it's like as I go out on the road while working through the emotions and challenges that go along with it. As I develop my knowledge and awareness, I hope to connect with you on this journey. Hey everyone, welcome to the Ride of My Life podcast. I'm Rena, and today I don't know what episode I'm on. Doesn't matter. I'll let you know on the when I post it. I am going to talk about this past week through the holiday, working through that, and what's coming up next for me, which is getting very close and part of what the last week was about. So I'll explain with that. So what I realized over the past couple of days were the situations that occurred in my life where I was victimized from childhood, during adulthood, that type of thing. And I say victimized because as I go through this, you'll understand it caused trauma. And when we are victimized, no matter what kind of situation it was, it produces a trauma. And for me, there were major fears in some areas of my life. There are some things where I don't get scared, but there are definitely areas where I do, which I've talked about. And my stress response to these fears put me on lockdown or locked in mode, where I became hypervigilant throughout my life. And it was like I was always on watching for the next shoe to drop and watching to make sure I was safe. And and we don't do this consciously after a certain point. We're doing it, well, really at all. It becomes a subconscious thing. And when we do it often enough, it does get locked in because it just keeps us like looking to see when the next thing is going to happen, whether it's something simple or, like I've said before, a tiger chasing us, which is what our stress response system is set up to do, but not many of us have tigers chasing us. But anyway, I digress. This has gone on throughout my entire life. And what I want to say is that years ago, I felt like a victim. I acted like a victim. And that's not who I am. And I'm not a victim. I know that deep inside of me, there's a strength and a power that can persevere and get through things. But it didn't feel that way. When we get traumatized and we go through something, our body literally takes over, physiologically takes over. Fear is physical and emotional, but it does take over in the body. You get sweats, you start pacing, your heart rate goes up. It's all kinds of things. It's shaking. It's all of that. And sometimes it really, really feels out of control, And what I was starting to kind of sit with that over the last week and recognize that it turns out that the things that I've been the most fearful about in my life are actually, quote unquote, this is a word we use, my superpowers. My superpowers are, it's okay for me to be alone because I gain my strength being alone. I love being with people and I also like being alone, even though it scares me. Being successful in whatever I'm doing just for my own. I see success as connection. I see success as love. I see success as following my heart, my dreams, whatever that is. And to me, I feel successful in this moment because that's what I'm doing with this podcast. But I want to share with you that it's very powerful to recognize that what we're most afraid of, what our belief systems are, some of those belief systems that we're most afraid of turn out to be the superpowers that we have. It's a thought. So check into that because I think that that really helped me to understand some things about who I am, the truth of who I am deep down inside. And look, what I can honestly say is I didn't think that this process would have moments of being ridiculously difficult to work through some of the old deep trauma. And I'm digging down deeper really than I ever have in my life. And the time I spent over the past couple of months, this is the major starting point, or with this part of it, working on digitizing my kids' photos. Like I explained, that was part of my process of preparing to leave here, where I'm at right now in Florida. That really brought up a lot of stuff for me because of all the things that occurred with my children. I don't talk about it as often as I used to. What's called parental alienation. I choose not to use that term. It's more, what was the family bond obstruction is a good term. I don't, I mean, at this point, it's a hurtful situation during a divorce, a high conflict divorce between two people who used to love each other. And it's very painful and traumatizing, and there's a lot that goes with it. So parental alienation, if you want to know what it is, you can go look it up for now, because that's not what I'm focusing on right now. I'm actually moving into a different space to help the trauma that occurred from it in my life, and to share that it is possible to get through it. So anyway, the combination of that and Christmas and preparing to leave for this trip has all been a whirlwind of fear and sadness and grief and anger, and sometimes even shame, especially when I was looking at those pictures, because I felt those feelings that I had back then going through what happened. And it was coming back up, but it comes up for a reason. It comes up to be looked at. It comes up to be felt. It comes up to be released. It comes up to let go. And then surrender into the moment of the feeling and just allow it to happen. And that's exactly what I did. And it felt like it was getting worse for a while. I mean, I really fell in, but really, I don't believe that it got worse. And I see that every time I work through something. I'm at a different place in my life. I'm a different person than I've obviously been in the past. And this is my life's work. It's something that I have wanted to do. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I do know that I'm excited about it, and I'm like terrified of it. And it's fun, and it's challenging, and it's like everything. It's feeling alive, even in the scary parts of it. When I'm in it, I don't see that, but talking about it now after walking through it, I can feel that. I literally can feel that. And I've shared this before, and what this feels like was the quiet before this storm happened over the past week was also challenging, knowing that the storm was going to come. I just didn't know how or when, or whatever capacity. And now just sitting and waiting out the storm as it processes through me. And it's now coming to a settling point right now, because I understand what happened, how it happened. I've listened to, videos to walk me through, like really what's going on, without taking in all the, panic and chaos of what's going on in the world, and just staying with myself. Because if I did that, I wouldn't be able to walk through this at all. And I have learned to recognize this, and in order to walk through it. So the crazy thing is that I'm fully aware of what's going on, and I know that my faith is there, and I surrender to each moment, knowing it will carry me through. I couldn't talk like this 6 months ago. Well, yeah, 6 months ago, a year ago, definitely not anytime else in the past. I couldn't say that. I say it now because I feel it. I've worked through enough of it to know that this is the case for me, and can be the case for anyone who chooses to go through this kind of journey. It just happens, especially in the last week, that what was going on was hitting open wounds that I didn't realize were still open. So I know that that's why I call it a journey. That's why it's called a journey, because it's like little by little we walk through these things that come to the surface, these emotions and feelings that have been stuck inside of us for so long, and work through each one of them. And this person's talking in front of you today could not have done this, obviously, or I would have, a year ago, definitely not 20 years ago, definitely not within the past 5 years. There's no way. She was scared. She was hopeless. She felt helpless. She needed love, which I wasn't giving to her. And now I started doing that. So I am getting through it. And I find that when I ask for things in life, careful what you ask for, the universe will bring it to me. And sometimes those things that the universe brings are the very things we need to walk through to release the old stuff that's been inside of us, us, for a lifetime or more. So I'm getting these opportunities to do this. And no, some days it feels like awful crap. And some days it's a little easier, and some days it's not so hard, whatever. But the old stuff of being in the emotions, these old emotions, the energies of these old emotions. And that's what I can't remember who coined this phrase or whatever, but emotions are energies in motion. And this makes, by working through this, it makes room for the new me, or really rather the remembrance of me. And that's the key to this, that I'm finding that I think is so cool. It's that it's reminding me of things that I've thought of in the past and things I've experienced in the past that I didn't think were right or cool or, whatever, to be a certain way. So I cut that out of my life, but that's who I am. And I lost a part of myself by doing that, to make other people happy, because I wanted people to love me, and I didn't want to lose people in my life. And those people that I was desperately trying to get to love me, I've said this before, they were obviously not meant to be there, because it was just not resonating at the vibrational level that I needed to be at. So little by little, people started being taken out of my life, and it hurts. It really hurts. And then the people who stay are the people who are meant to be there, and that's amazing. And so I still, throughout this last week, I was still doing deep breath work to calm my system down, because I was really getting agitated and I couldn't figure out why. And I've also been using flower essences. I can't remember exactly what it's for, but the Star of Bethlehem, it helps to reduce anxiety or chronic thinking, which I chronically do sometimes, to assist in this process. So during the time of getting the pictures done, I ended up also foregoing the walks and exercise I was doing, which I was so adamant about, and it was working really well. And I know I'm gonna go over this piece, because it was such a lesson that I learned in and of itself through this, where the body is not meant to stay still. The body needs movement, period. This is what I know. I'm still working on getting myself to stay with that process, but I do know this logically. And when I stopped moving through my walks and the exercise, in order to get these pictures done in time for the Christmas gift to my kids, things felt worse within me, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I was just losing it, and I couldn't figure out why. And then one day it was like, oh yeah. And the day that it all came to a head and made me realize that my body needs the movement was the aha moment. And it literally felt like those energies were getting stuck inside of me again. And why I forgot about that, I have no idea, but I do that. It's a work in progress. There's no perfection here happening within that. And I don't expect it to be. And the recognitions are fantastic. The awarenesses are amazing. You know, when I recognize and become aware of these things, and it begins to lock in to my system, and I start to understand, and then I'm like, oh, okay, all right, let's go on from here. I'm not going to guarantee yet, with things being, you know, up in the air with moving around and stuff, how consistent I can be on the movement, but I'm going to do my darndest to try. So anyway, one of the things I did do during this process of this last week was I went back to pacing. My body was telling me that I needed to get out and move. And that's where I started, because I analyze everything. That's where I started to recognize what was going on, even though at first I wouldn't listen, and the energies got worse. The you know, anxiety or whatever was going on got worse. And I have written in a couple of blog posts referencing my fear and belief of running out of time. And this is an important piece, because so we started off with the movement of the body. Now I'm going to the mind, to the belief systems. And this is a big deal for me, apparently, because my belief is I must finish this or I will run out of time. That's a main core belief, I feel like, and that's what I've come across. But there's another belief that also seems to be running right alongside of that one. And I realized that the two were connected for me. And I've known about it for a while, but I didn't see until now how they went together. And so here it is. If I don't finish or do this, fill in the blank, for so-and-so, the other person, they won't love me anymore. They will leave me and I will be alone. And there it is, alone again, which obviously I've also been working on the other side, recognizing that I'm not. And it's okay that I'm alone, because I regain my strength from being alone. Anyway, so when I see these things come up, I don't fall into the pain of it quite as much as I used to. I recognize it. It's much easier now with this. And now it just like intrigues me. I don't really ask why in this case. I know I have a brain that constantly runs, analyzes, questions, things. That's just how my brain happens to be set up. And I love putting puzzles together, and it shows up here in my self and life inquisitiveness. I'm always looking and researching and trying to understand things, and, you know, whatever. So it's constantly going. So, you know, when I get a time for peace and quiet, it's like, yay. It's not always easy, but it's definitely interesting anyway. Because of this, though, because of all the inquisitiveness, I've asked that unanswerable question, why things happen in my life, why things are going on, why this, why that. It's not an answerable question. That's been my go-to. And what I do know now, after the last few days of this, my fear and belief, as I mentioned at the beginning of this recording, my fear and belief about being alone is actually my superpower. And I've thought a lot about that concept. In my aloneness, like I said, or I alluded to, I gain strength. I gain wisdom, understanding, self-love, and personal guidance. And this is actually necessary for me to thrive. If there's something about feeling alone, which I haven't totally grasped yet, that adds a twinge of deep sadness. I don't know what that is. I'm still working through understanding what that is. And as I get ready for the new year and I'm reflecting on my life, every experience I've ever had throughout my entire life has always brought me back to this space of being alone. And somewhere inside, I know I'm okay being alone. In fact, I love it, that's where it's interesting. So I'm working through that, and I want to understand it. I want to see what that's about. And I also love being with my friends and family. And I thrive in both worlds, but somehow things got mixed up to where I somehow thought that I will never have people in my life who loved me. What? That's not, we tell ourselves lies all the time. And this is just an example of a core belief that's also a lie, and a lie that's been with me for a long time. And now I fully know that part of it. And I've got many people in my life who love me. I feel it to my core. I am getting to, and I'm also getting to fully love myself. And I know on a deep level that this has just been my journey to find that loving connection within myself and others. That's part of the process. I mean, even things that appear to be like crazy, over the top painful are also part of the process. And I'm learning that now. I'm understanding that more now. And other people are really, we're not separate from each other. We're all an extension of each other. And I'm finding that out too. There's so many similarities. No matter what we want to, how, we want to be separate from each other, and we want to see each other as separate. That's not the case. We're very much alike in many ways, especially because we all have the same feelings, the same emotions, and the inside of us is all the same, regardless of whether you want to believe that or not. Just because our outer shells appear to be different, we're all the same inside. And so there's a connection there. There's a oneness there. And there's a separateness that's intentional for us to understand what the oneness is all about, and that's kind of what I'm getting to in my healing journey process. So a big aha moment for me yesterday as I was walking, or I'm sorry, I can't talk, as I was talking to a family member. Actually, this was a few days ago, is that no, the traumas that happened in my life are no longer stuck in there, because they were fully concerned that I was repeating myself. And that's not what was going on. And what I explained to them was that I've rectified the emotional losses and have done plenty of forgiveness work around them on other people in my life and for myself. And it wasn't about that. What happens sometimes is that every so often things will surface to remind and trigger me again, so I can release more, because some stuff is really deep. I mean, the stuff I'm working through right now is really, really deep stuff, deep belief systems, deep energies, deep pain, pains that I went through. It's not just, oh yeah, so-and-so hurt me, said something mean to me the other day and whatever. I'm talking like deep childhood traumas, even if I say that loosely, even if it's simple, like not being nurtured, that's still a trauma, and that's painful to some people, and not everybody understands that. And some people do, and maybe they don't want to look at it, or I don't know what the deal is, how that works. I just know that there are people out there who aren't able to walk through that. Sometimes it's from a feeling of not feeling good enough to do anything or be anything, or whatever. And I've been there. Sometimes I still go there. But anyway, it doesn't mean that these things can't be overcome. And sometimes when going through the trigger, the process, whatever's happening, in the moment, it feels like crap. It really, really hurts, but it doesn't last that long anymore. These moments can feel like they're never ending, but they go away. I mean, this last one I had a few days ago, I think it was on Christmas. I don't know. I think it took me maybe about 10 or 15 minutes to just kind of talk, and walk my way through it and pace and do and cry and, whatever. But eventually it started to release and I felt better afterwards. And it certainly led to me feeling way, way better today. And so it does eventually subside. And it really sometimes is important to have someone there to hold the space, not to tell you how to fix it or tell you what to do or any of that stuff. Just ask them, hold my space. I need to lose my mind for a minute, which is kind of what I do. And for me, it's essential to walk through it, knowing that there's some sort of a support system there present with me until I can get through that big part. And then I know that there's other support happening with the universe, with myself, my inner child, my inner parents, whatever, however you want to look at that. So this is important for me because I feel like I was put on this planet for some reason to show people the way back home to themselves as I walk through this, to find out how this works. And it's just part of my path and I fully accept it. And it may look at times to my friends and family like I'm totally, stepping back, falling back like crazy. But I'm not. I'm actually getting through it little by little. And there is a point in time where learning how to do certain things to bring yourself out of that trauma is actually easier than we think. We think we're locked in and we're not. It's easier to somatically heal, to heal the body. And when the body heals, the mind starts to heal. But you got to do the work together. You can't just do one or the other. I see also the world differently than most people do. I don't watch the news regularly, but I do keep track of it. There's a lot of confusing information that's causing trauma to a lot of people too. And sometimes that includes me. And so I've been in my life locked into the cycle of fear from watching the news around the clock. It just makes me sick. And this fully occurred during Desert Storm, when days, weeks on end, constantly, like I think we watched CNN 24/7. And it was so freaking overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, the world's going to end. And da, da, da. Well, it didn't, and just like the end of 1999, when we went into 2000 and all the computers are supposed to fall apart and everybody's being thrown all this information that the world's going to end. We're not going to have the computers, da, 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 da. And that didn't happen. I mean, I don't know how many examples I could give. Those are just a couple of them. I know there's plenty more examples where we have been put into this fear mode and then realize later, wait, it didn't happen, and for me, because I'm so sensitive to other people's energies and to energies in the, life in general, when I get locked into news, I'm done. I really get into, that fear space. So I just can't do it. So I choose not to dig in and get sucked in by that anymore. It's just too much for me. And I fully feel that in my body. And for that reason, like the sharks say, I'm out. So on Shark Tank, if you don't watch it, it's a good show. Anyway, a little plug for Shark Tank. Anyway, there's quite a bit of fear mongering going on these days. And these days, it's always been going on. They build this up, they ramp it up, make everybody scared and blah, 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 blah. And then nobody knows where to turn. Nobody knows what to do. I've been there. I don't like it. And especially for those of us who have really been traumatized in our lives as children and with other experiences, this can add to the trauma and the fear that's already locked up inside some of us, and it's not an easy challenge. It's not an easy path. You got to want to get the heck out of that. you know, and start working to know that there's a way out. And these things are occurring for you, not to you. That's a big lesson that I had to learn. You are loved. You are love. You are loved, period. That's the truth. Bottom line is this: normal life, quote unquote, without the excess fear is challenging enough to work through for some of us. Some have figured out how to do this in their own way, and that's fantastic. I, for one, find myself in a place of having worked through a good bit of the healing. And then when something comes up that hasn't quite worked itself through, my body will take over and it feels like whatever it is happening again. And that is just the stress response that's in lock mode that I talked about earlier. And I know this is how my body reacts at times, and that's part of my journey to find out how to fully feel safe in my body, no matter what. And I'm getting there. And of course, as I say, it's a process. So the body holds the emotions, and letting go is not as simple sometimes as just being told by someone to get over it, quote unquote. It doesn't always work that way for some people. We are not identical. So when anxiety and fear hits, it can hit hard within my body. It can also be released because I know now, it's what I know now. I'm sorry. I'm thinking my way through. What I know now is that triggers happen in my life. They happen in all of our lives. And there is also, for me now, a deep abiding peace inside, which I did not feel before in years past. And when I'm triggered, I lose myself sometimes. And even that has become shorter now. It doesn't last as long. I always find my way back home to myself, even when it may appear or sound like I'm falling backwards or losing it in the moment while it's happening, especially to others watching. I'll tell you, it's not the same as it used to be. And for that, I'm definitely grateful. And so the ride of my life is about sharing and showing that there is a way to come back home to ourselves and the truth about who we are. And just knowing, the biggest key to this, I feel, is just knowing that these things are coming up. We didn't do anything wrong. They're coming up for us to understand ourselves better and love ourselves better. And in turn, that will help us to put out the love to the rest of the world. I want to say in oneness, like I talked about already. So thank you for being here. I am so grateful that you are watching or listening. And the links to blog and locations of podcasts are all below, either in a comment that I made, or if you're on YouTube, it's within the description. So again, have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here, and reach out if you have any questions. I'm here. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.